I am so ready to kick off this series where we dive into all things referrals, IEPs, and evaluations. And today we are starting off with referrals. And so we're heading into one of the busiest paperwork seasons, typically for school-based SLPs. And I know a lot of us get overwhelmed by all of these components. So I'm really excited to share some of the strategies that have worked for me in managing a caseload in the triple digits, and then also working with thousands of SLPs on helping them streamline and save a bunch of time with these types of tasks. So referrals is what's first up. And the first tip that I have for you around referrals is to document the steps so that you can kind of inventory the process. And by knowing exactly what the steps are, that'll save you a ton of time because you won't be forgetting to do certain steps, which I've definitely done. So you won't be forgetting steps. You'll have like clear process. You won't have to think about all the things that you need to do. You'll just have them written out and you can just run through the list and get them done much more efficiently. So here's just a brain dump of what some of the steps might include, but I would highly recommend checking out your district's process and checking in with other SLPs or your administrator. A lot of times they'll have a process already written out, but just make sure that you have that and that you have easy access to it. But some steps are like a referral is kicked off when a parent or a teacher request that. And so that will look different depending on where you are, but maybe it's typically like a verbal type of thing if you don't have a form set up, but either you'll get a verbal request for referral and you'll have to follow up, or the teacher will submit a form and that'll kick off the referral. Then we may need to request additional information. We may schedule screening depending on your state, if that's something that's allowed. And then you may be sharing the results with the team and or making recommendations and deciding what the next steps are. And then we may decide like, no, this doesn't make sense for a referral. Referral is cleared, or maybe we need to decide to follow up, or maybe we're moving them in a different route. So those are some of the big steps when it comes to referral. And I was purposefully trying to keep it broad because obviously this varies, but hopefully this helps you. Like if you were able to kind of jot down some of your steps as you were listening, that would be super awesome. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, this is a great, like writing out the steps is a great thing to do with your team at the district level, or like with other SLPs or with people in your building, just so you're on the same page in terms of the process. And then you can share resources to help streamline and make that even easier. So some things that we can do to make that process easier are, one, just knowing what the steps are, but then also making sure that we have all of the resources that we need. So we're not reinventing the wheel every time. So having a teacher referral form that helps you gather all of the information right off the bat and making it clear to people at your school, if you have a referral, we need to fill out this form. This is all the information I need. And then that saves you a bunch of time going back and forth and being like, oh, wait, I needed this and I needed this. And can you tell me this? So instead, you'll capture it all on one form. You may need to gather parent permission as well. So you'll want to have a form or process for that. You may want a quick form to keep track of your results, like if you do a screening or classroom observation or whatever you might do as part of the referral process. Just having a way to document your results. And then one thing that I really like, so you might have a handful of forms and resources. So if you're using hard copies, I highly recommend just having a binder or like a series of folders, and just make sure you have multiple copies so you can just grab and go. You don't have to go to your computer, remember where the file is, hit print, run to the printer, then go. That's a lot of extra steps. So just make sure you have copies of any hard copies any papers that you're using as part of the process. And then one quick tip I like to, because it's easier for me to like make a copy of something than to try and connect my computer to the printer and do all of those steps. So I tend to use the copy machine for additional copies. And so I like to highlight my original. And if you use a yellow highlighter, the copier doesn't pick up on the highlighting. So I know that I can never, ever, ever give away a copy of a sheet that has highlighter on it because that's my original. So anytime I run out of copies, that highlighter is a reminder for me. And then I run to the copy machine, make a handful of copies and like replenish that. So I've had file folders with these extra copies or binders with sheet protectors with extra copies in them. Because the sheet protectors fit like a handful of sheets. So those are some ways to keep those things organized so that you have easy access to everything that you need. And then you might want to have a sheet where you can keep track of all of the referrals and like their status and their dates. And you can have this just be written. You just have like the student's name, the date they were referred, and then like the date that you want to follow up and maybe their status or whatever. So you can have just like a printed table that you use. I really like to do this digitally and I'm super duper excited because we have a feature in SLP now where it has pre-made checklists. So we've done like the step 1 that I shared of documenting the steps. We have a checklist of the common steps that you'll need to complete a successful referral. And then we have digital versions of all of the forms that you can send off, and it helps you keep track of what you've completed. You like check off the steps. The resources are attached, whether you're using like teacher form or collecting information from the parents or whatever it might be. You just click to send it off and the system takes care of it. You check off the steps that you have to do manually, and then you can enter in like due dates and statuses so that you can quickly sort your list of students. So it helps organize all of those pieces for you, which I think is super cool. It's saving SLPs a lot of time. And then, one of the things that is also super helpful is having handouts. And so kind of at the very beginning of the process, what makes an effective referral. So if you are getting a ton of referrals and you're not feeling like they're the best referrals, I did a episode with Lacey a handful of episodes back where we talked about communicating with teachers, and that's one of the things that we discussed. But if you didn't listen to that episode, one strategy would be to like share handouts with teachers or to do a quick in-service where you talk about what makes a good referral and give teachers some strategies that they can implement, because they really should be implementing some interventions before making a referral. And so, that's one tip. And then just having a handout for teachers on like what would make a good referral and things to consider. And also having some handouts with strategies that they can implement, and you can trickle those throughout the year. And then on the tail end of the referral, or kind of in the beginning, just like resources for parents as well on things that they can try. And just some education on the process and all of that. And so having those resources helps streamline a lot of the communication as well. And then, so I think that those are all the tips. So just a quick recap is the biggest thing that you can do to save your time is just to document that whole process. And as you're doing that, you can look at it. You don't have to streamline everything right off the bat. But if you seeing those steps on paper, and then you can be like, well, I always forget to do that. So what can I do to help myself? Or, oh my gosh, I'm getting so many referrals that don't make sense. And so you can look at that and kind of address the very beginning stages. And over time, you'll be able to like reflect and identify where you're getting held up, what's taking the most time, and then just streamline that whole process. And so those are my recommendations for navigating referrals. And then just some like keeping track of the copies or managing paperwork digitally. having a list so that you can easily keep track of who you need to follow up with, whether that's on paper or digitally. Like there's tons of options there's 5 million ways that you could organize this and actually implement it. But I think those are the biggest principles. Yeah. And if you're wanting to check out the SLP Now workload tools to help streamline your referrals and all the other pieces of paperwork, head to slpnow.com/pod and you'll be able to sign up for a free trial and check out all of those tools and use them as much as you want for 2 whole weeks. So that is a wrap, and we'll see you next week when we talk about assessments and evaluation.